Hey, what's up, Good Life? Thanks for joining me for today's 128 moment. You know, genetics is kind of a funny thing. Our oldest son looks a lot like my wife, but acts even more like me. And our youngest son has my wife's personality and energy, but looks almost exactly like I did at that age. His resemblance is startling. He's truly my mini-me. And it's always enlightening to see your traits that are lived out in the lives of your children. No mirror has ever reflected me more clearly than my image being lived out in the attitudes and the actions of our sons. And a few years ago, our youngest son was on a scrambled eggs kick. If we would let him, he would have eaten scrambled eggs at every single meal. It's not just that he was excited about eating them because he liked the taste. He was excited because we were letting him cook all by himself, with a watchful eye, of course. When he finished his first solo scramble, he was quite proud of himself. He sat down beside me to savor his every bite and to share a running commentary of his latest culinary conquest. But when I glanced at his plate, I wasn't quite sure what had gone wrong, because the familiar, pale yellow of scrambled eggs was drowned out by bright red substance. My 11-year-old had soaked his scrambled eggs in a spicy flood of hot sauce, an amount of hot sauce that would have made grown men sweat. Now, why would Ethan do this? Well, I always put hot sauce on my eggs, and I put hot sauce on sandwiches, and I put hot sauce even on my burrito bowls from Chipotle. I put a little hot sauce on everything because I think just a little bit of spice makes most everything better. Now, although I never sat down and never had an intentional conversation about passing this on to him, I clearly passed on a fiery legacy. At every single meal, a tiny set of eyes was watching my every move. Ethan and I never shared some deep, life-shaping discussion about the virtues of hot sauce, but that didn't stop my mini-me from following my footsteps. Now, if the baton is passed in an area as inconsequential as condiments, how much more is that true in matters of eternal significance? Each and every one of us is leaving a legacy. Just as matter occupies space, lives leave marks. And if you exist, someone is different because you do. The question is not whether you will leave a legacy. The question is, what kind of legacy are you going to leave? On the heels of our Proverbs series, we must remember that wise living is the best way to pass on a legacy of wisdom. And foolish living is the best way to pass on foolishness to the next generation. In Proverbs 13:22, it says that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Consider that. Your life and my life will shape and impact our grandchildren. A godly life can shape the future of your children's children, and maybe even on beyond that. So I have to ask you and I, what kind of legacy are we leaving for the people who are watching our lives? A wise life, a life that is shaped like the gospel, can bless your children and their children with a legacy that leads them to Jesus. So Good Life, is that the kind of legacy you are leaving? Now, as you consider that question, let me invite you to join us this Sunday as we begin a new series on the life of David. Kings are in a prime position to make a mark and leave a legacy on their people. They have every opportunity to leave their subjects better than they found them. And at the end of their reign, the question is never whether they left a legacy. The question is, what kind of legacy did they leave? So over the next several weeks, we're going to be walking through the life of David, the warrior, poet, king of Israel. And through the ups and downs of his life, we're going to see the gospel in the life of a king. And my hope is that we'll discover how we can leave a godly and gospel legacy to the ones who are watching our lives. Hope you'll be able to join us this Sunday as we start that. We'll be at 9:30 and 11 here at the church, 11 o'clock online. And until then, let's go be a people who will love enough.